By now, we've talked quite a bit about the realm of Therenor, introducing you to its vast primordial landscapes along with the highly specialized giants that roam them. But there's one more aspect we haven't really touched up on yet: the races unique to this world, and how you can go about using them in your next home game. We have 3 playable races we'll be introducing in this video, with a grand total of 7 playable races in Therenor right now. The other 4 races will be shown off in a part 2 sometime down the line. If any of these races interest you, we encourage you to draw or write about them, and show us your work on Therenor's Discord server, a new addition to the channel we polled for last week. If we really like what you've made, you might even win custom artwork and handmade sets of resin dice designed by us to celebrate the growth this channel's seen over the last month. Writing submissions and art submissions will have separate prize pools for fairness, and I'll talk more about that at the end of this video. Just as a reminder, if you like giant-themed world-building content, give the channel a like and a subscribe, and take a look at our Reimagining Giants videos. So far, we've covered hill, stone, frost, and fire giants. All speed paints showcased in this video are done by Lee, and you can follow her on both Instagram and YouTube. And with that, let's talk about Therenor's unique playable races. The realm of Therenor itself is overflowing with ancient magic, its trees, rocks, and oceans living and breathing spirits of nature. The first original race born from the soil, the Giants, contain large quantities of this ancient magic in their spirits as well, enabling them over thousands of years to connect with the world and magically evolve to best thrive in their environment. Most small folk contain the essence of Therenor within them as well, although in much smaller amounts. While not enough to drastically change their appearances, this magic can be tapped into through clerical and druidic practices by those who devote themselves to the worship of Therenor's 6 great spirits. Beyond this, though, small folk are largely unaffected by Therenor's magics. There are, however, select exceptions. Similarly to Therenor's giants, whose primordial spirits are deeply connected to the natural world, there are groups of small folk whose spirits are flowing with this natural essence. They would have magically morphed over the course of tens of thousands of years to thrive in Therenor's regions, creating brand new species in the process. Today, we'll be going over a few. Just a quick note, making custom races is completely new to Lee and I. It's very possible that any one of these races may experience additional changes or revisions further down the line, but for the time being, they're available on D&D Beyond as a homebrew option that you can use for your own personal games. So with that being said, let's start. Our first species takes us back to Nalansander, the desiccated iron-rich desert in the east. A combination of unbearable daytime heat, a severe lack of water sources, and dangerous nighttime predators makes the Needle Sands particularly hazardous to small folk, who enter the desert exclusively on temporary expeditions. Despite its inhospitable nature, there is one race of small folk who permanently call the desert their home, all thanks to an unlikely ally. Millennia ago, Therenor's elves, confined to the canopies of the Titan trees in the north, were eager to expand their reach to new regions of the world. Multiple expeditions were sent across the realm in search of hospitable land, although most areas surveyed were either preoccupied or fatal for the explorers. One group, tasked with scaling the mountains of the east, found themselves unprepared for the scorching desert located on the other side. With the expedition quickly losing the strength to return through the mountains, they reached out to their home and requested aid, only to be denied and left to die. Not willing to give up, the group pushed deeper into the desert, hoping to find some form of civilization among the dunes. Battered and broken, the elves eventually located Ilderheim, where they were quickly welcomed and tended to by the benevolent fire giants. With single small-story homes made of cloth, hide, and dried foliage, the Sand Elves live on the outskirts of Ilderheim, keeping cool in the shade and trance-like states during the day, and voyaging into the city at night. They maintain the oasis, tending to the massive oasis birds, cleaning the streets of smithing debris, and defending the city from nighttime predators while the giants slumber and forage. In return, the fire giants forge the elves gifts of metal, ceramic, and glass, and permit them to harvest whatever oasis fruits and vegetation they desire to take back with them into the desert. This symbiotic relationship has allowed both groups to thrive culturally, developing a diverse array of unique glass wind instruments and musical numbers inspired by the songs once heard in the Titan trees. Over the generations, the Sandalver, or Sandelves as they are also called, have morphed in appearance to better acclimate to their arid biome. The development of a light, almost fuzz-like coat of hair on their backs, ears, and limbs protects the Sandelve's skin from intense solar burns, while also doubling as insulation for the desert's cold winter nights. Their ears have also changed, seated slightly higher on their heads and flattening out, resulting in a vulpine-like silhouette. These larger, thinner ears allow heat to dissipate from their bodies and back out into the environment, regulating their body temperature and reducing the risk of overheating. Another benefit of larger ears is a heightened sense of hearing. Primarily active at night, the Sandalver rely on their keen hearing to ensure predators hidden within and underneath the dunes do not surprise them. When playing a Sandalver character, you gain these special traits. For ability score increases, you can either use the fixed scores, which increases your dexterity by 2 and your wisdom by 1, or you could choose to apply these ability score increases wherever you want. If you're playing D&D 2024, use the ability score modifier provided by your background. As far as languages go, you know Common, Elvish, and Giant, but if you're using the 2024 language rules, keep Common and pick 2 other languages that best fit your character's background. Just like elves in the Forgotten Realms, you can live up to 750 years and you're between the heights of 5 to 6 feet. You also have dark vision to a range of 60 feet, and you have Fey ancestry. We have advantage on saving throws you make to avoid or end the charmed condition. You also have the ability Trance, where you don't need the sleep and magic can't put you to sleep, and you can finish a long rest in 4 hours as long as you spend it in a trance-like meditation. Here, however, is where your Sandalver differs from your standard Wood Elf, High Elf, or Drow. As a Sandalver, you come from a long line of desert-dwelling elves, and you gain abilities because of this. Starting at level 1, you have resistance to fire damage. You also know the Produce Flame cantrip. At level 3, you learn the spell Sand Surge, a level 1 spell that allows you to create a 10-foot radius sphere of swirling sand that's considered difficult terrain and causes creatures to take 1d6 slashing damage the first time they enter the spell's area and when they start their turn there. And finally, at level 5, you know the spell Gust of Wind. Sandalver also get the trait Desert Scavenger, which, after slaying a creature, they can spend 10 minutes scavenging the body and finding useful materials. They can then use these materials to gain one of the following benefits. Sandalver might harvest hard materials like bone or thickened hide to create extra temporary padding for themselves or an ally, increasing their AC by 1 until the next long rest. They might also locate some sort of toxic gland or sac, envenoming a weapon and causing it to deal additional poison damage. They can even use materials from their slain enemy to create a salve, bandage, or splint, providing a small amount of healing. When in doubt, a Sandalver can always just harvest a few days' rations from their slain foe. Your dungeon master would determine what creatures could be scavenged and whether or not you gather any resources, and you can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, regaining all expended charges on a long rest. With generations of experience living in one of the most uninhabitable regions of Therenor, a Sandalver is both a resourceful and dependable companion for any adventuring party. When we first started making custom races for Therenor, one of the main issues we kept running into was that our races were a bit too animalistic. We wanted to avoid that one design trope that keeps popping up where it's just animal head on top of a person body. So what we ended up doing was taking the base elf and slowly adding on these specific animal features that help desert creatures survive better in their environment. Elves, which are already known to morph physically to fit their environment after staying there for multiple generations, kind of felt like the perfect solution for our problem. Making this race a group of people who initially were left for dead but have since found refuge in Ilderheim, it also allowed us to bring the giants back into their story, which is a theme you might see as we continue to show off these custom races. I definitely want to cover elves a little more in a future video, and I definitely plan on doing that soon. From the deserts we travel west, through the mountains and back to the Sandelves' native homes, the massive arboreal cities hidden away amongst the leaves. It's here we find our next species, large nomadic beetle folk native to the Titan trees. Known as the Vanderpi, these solitary travelers carry their worlds on their backs, spending most of their lives scaling the trunks of Therenor's massive trees. Wandering traders, they are masters of bartering and commerce, eagerly making connections with anyone they come across. They trade as they travel, often reaching the canopy with an entirely new inventory than when they first started. Once at the top, they leap and glide down to the forest floor, beginning the voyage anew. A Vanderpi measures its age by how many times they complete this journey, which they can comfortably do over 250 times within their lifetime, averaging about 120 years, refining and perfecting their route over the decades. Their first 10 voyages are under the supervision of a guardian before they are considered experienced enough to set out on their own, though they are not adults until their 20th. Similarly to other arthropods, the Vanderpi continuously molt as they get older, about once every 5 years by the time they are adults. Slightly larger with every new molt, Vanderpi never stop growing, beginning adulthood at 4.5 feet and reaching heights of 7 feet by their first century. Their discarded exoskeletons are prized items, and can fetch for thousands of gold pieces with the right vendor. When in the hands of an elvish smith, Vanderpi heads are fashioned into decorative helms often worn by high-ranking officials. Their elytra are used to create sturdy shields, and limb segments are also used to craft bracers and greaves. While generally self-reliant, Vanderpi are often contracted by elven nations of Therenor to import specialty items from other civilizations, carrying hundreds of pounds of goods upon their backs as they climb. Lack of an internal skeleton means massive lengths of muscle can be packed within their chitinous limbs, allowing the Vanderpi to more efficiently generate force and effortlessly carry heavy loads. Additionally, Vanderpi will often have to deter wild arboreal beasts on their travels, and heightened musculature allows them to place some extra force in their attacks as they defend their trade routes. It may seem burdensome, but Vanderpi are biologically adapted to this nomadic lifestyle. While not an issue during climbs, standard Vanderpi are clumsy and top-heavy. A few dozen extra pounds placed upon their backs refocuses their center of gravity and prevents them from toppling over. When standing in place, they will squat on their back legs to aid in centering themselves, even maintaining this position as they sleep. Some Vanderpi may find the prospects of trading within their tree unfavorable. Others may simply have no interest in spending their lives scaling the Titan trees. For whatever reason, it's not entirely uncommon for Vanderpi to leave their trade route and become wandering merchants or adventurers. These Vanderpi may carry with them walking sticks, or an additional few dozen pounds in random gear and material to maintain their balance. They may also choose to age themselves with the completion of lengthy quests and journeys, or adopt the day they left as their birthday and follow the standard Therenor calendar. As a Vanderpi, you gain these special traits. If you're using fixed ability score increases, your strength increases by 2 and your charisma increases by 1. You start off knowing the languages Common and Elvish, but if you're using 2024 language rules, then keep Common and pick 2 other ones that you think would fit your character. You also get the racial trait Haggler, which gives you advantage on your first intimidation, persuasion, or deception check made to receive a discount from a vendor. This can be done as many times as you want in a day, but can only be applied to a vendor once. This trait can be incredibly useful when first entering a town or when a luxury vendor's goods are just out of your price range. Your heightened musculature also provides you with a bunch of bonuses. One of these traits, Territorial, lets you put some extra power behind your attacks. The first time a creature enters a space within 15 feet of you and ends its turn there, you can use a reaction to add an additional 1d10 force damage to your next weapon or spell attack as long as you're targeting that creature. Another of these traits is Insectoid Endurance, allowing you to carry up to triple your standard carrying capacity. Additionally, you can choose to ignore the first level of exhaustion you receive. This trait is usable again after you've taken a long rest at 0 levels of exhaustion. Finally, with Coleopter and Flight, your massive wings allow you to slow your descent. You can cast Featherfall on yourself a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain these uses after a long rest. A Vanderpi in your group will drastically improve the chances of securing affordable food, luxurious accommodation, and high-quality gear, and their extraordinary might and tireless nature make them the cornerstone of any adventuring party. I'm incredibly satisfied with how the Vanderpi turned out. I think creating this sort of wandering nomad that travels vertically instead of horizontally across the plains is a very cool concept. They also have some very close ties with the elves and other races that might require their services for transferring materials and goods. And in general, their designs can be adjusted in so many different ways, shapes, and forms, just like beetles in real life. I didn't really mention giants at all, but these guys do have some interesting interactions with cloud giants, and I want to cover that when we actually cover cloud giants very soon. There's a lot of variation to this race, a lot of flavor, and a lot of different ways you could take their character, and I think this is one of our strongest so far, and this is Lee's favorite race. Finally, we leave the comfort of the trees and delve far beneath the surface, secluded in Therenor's lush, untouched fungal caverns. Here, amongst the moss-covered cliff faces and roaring subterranean rivers, live small communities of amphibious hunter-gatherers, whose reliance on their underground ecosystems and frequent interactions with the nature-preserving stone giants has resulted in a mindful race, which tends to their surroundings, taking only what they need and living day by day. The Caudites and the stone giants have been subterranean neighbors for countless millennia, it being said that the giants were there to witness the first group of Caudites scuttle their way onto the mossy banks all those years ago. As the race continued to develop, stone giants would frequently come to their aid, defending these newfound people from harm, providing them with the opportunity to thrive. In the generations since, their bond would only deepen. Now hundreds of communities strong, the Caudites are scattered throughout Therenor's underground cave systems, and are frequently seen with stone giants. Injured and elder giants are often accompanied by Caudite druids, which tend to their cracking bodies, and groups of Caudites will oversee these caverns and maintain order in the stone giant's absence. When a stone giant is created, Caudites play an important role in introducing the giant to the caverns, and ensuring they are accustomed to the environment. Therenor's Caudites have a number of traits that make them perfectly suited for their world. Massive blackened eyes aid in light absorption within the caves, allowing for heightened vision in low-light environments. And their slicked skin is patterned in a stunning array of colors, with some members even displaying bioluminescence to further improve their sight in the dark. Their forelimbs, hind limbs, and digits are webbed, increasing surface area and helping with propulsion through the oppressive river rapids, as well as traversing slicked environments. The development of a thick, fat-filled tail not only functions like a rudder, helping the Caudite maneuver the rapids, but as an energy storage and, in drastic instances, a defense mechanism. Caudites threatened by any number of massive subterranean denizens can drop their tails, distracting a foe and making room for them to escape. Most interestingly, Caudites possess an additional set of limbs, situated above their shoulder blades. These secondary arms are fully mobile, able to manipulate objects, open doors and containers, and hold weapons. The hands on these arms are tipped with sticky suction-like padding, which allow the Caudites to latch themselves to surfaces, making them exceedingly difficult to move. Their diet consists of an array of cave moss, bioluminescent fungus, and giant insects, but the staple of any Caudite meal is the abundant subterranean river fish. Caudites will dive into the roaring rivers, spear and net in hand, swimming to the jagged rocks which poke out of the rapids and latching on with their secondary limbs. Now in position, they wait for passing river fish to catch. Caudite communities have learned to use the most of their surroundings, with the plants and fungi found in abundance around their homes having many medicinal applications. They can be mushed and applied as ointments on open wounds, used as wrappings to prevent infections, or even dried and ground into powders which can cure minor ailments. Caudite villages are small, but brightly decorated with hundreds of hanging charms made of fishbone, chitin, and spider silk dangling from the roofs, walls, and nearby cliff faces. Many of the surrounding cave features are also painted with glowing symbols, poems, and short stories, using a highly pigmented paste made by boiling and mashing bioluminescent mosses and fungi. While Caudites are deeply in tune with their surroundings, there are many reasons why one might choose to embark on a journey to the surface. Perhaps the Caudite, who has spent most of its life tending to the same patches of cave moss, seek greater thrills on the surface. Maybe another Caudite has heard of the stone giant's plight above ground and is eager to aid in any way they can. Maybe even a Caudite exiled from their community will decide to take the risk and voyage to the surface. Whatever the reason, Caudites make for exceptionally elusive rangers, scouts, or assassins, able to quickly and quietly cross many types of terrain and position themselves in hard-to-reach areas. Alternatively, a raging Caudite armed with 4 weapons makes quite the formidable frontliner. As a Caudite, you gain these special traits. Your dexterity score increases by 2 and your constitution score increases by 1, or you could use 2024's ASI rules. And you start off knowing 3 languages: Common, Undercommon, and Giant. Again, if you're playing in 2024, then you just get Common and you're able to select the 2 languages that best fit your backstory. You age rather slowly, but you can comfortably live anywhere between 200 to 250 years, and you stand at about 5 to 6 feet tall. You also have dark vision to a range of 60 feet. One trait you get that's unique to Caudites is Slippery Traveler, allowing you to ignore difficult terrain in both swampland and underdark environments. Another trait focused around your secondary arms is called Auxiliary Appendages. These arms are able to manipulate objects, open or close doors or containers, pick up and set down tiny objects, or wield weapons that have the light property. Another thing these secondary arms are able to do is the Caudite's other trait, Anchor. Using an action, sticky padding on your secondary arms allow you to root yourself in place. This can be hanging off a cliff, in a rushing stream, or dangling from a tree. While anchored, your move speed becomes 0, and you have advantage on checks and saving throws against spells, attacks, actions, or effects, which would move you from your place. You automatically detach from a surface if you're moved, and you can use a bonus action to willingly detach yourself. The Caudite's final trait, Tail Drop, allows you to use a reaction to escape from danger. When you take this reaction, you could benefit from one of the following effects. When you're reduced to 0 hit points by an attack, you could instead take half of that attack's damage. You could automatically free yourself from a grappled or restrained effect, or you gain advantage on your next stealth check, and you can move 10 feet without provoking opportunity attacks. Creatures who witness the tail drop have disadvantage on their check to perceive you. Once you use this trait, your tail needs to regrow before you can use it again, and it grows back enough after a long rest. The Caudites are my personal favorite race. I really like the Underdark environment, and I love designing these weird, creepy, funky creatures that would be living in there. But the Caudite kind of walk that line between creepy and endearing. They have these wonderful villages that are constantly producing art and advancing in medicines and protecting their environment, but also they're giant-eyed, slimy, multi-limbed salamander folk. Initially, the Caudites were going to be spider folk, and they were going to be able to shoot web to catch cave fish, but D&D already has a group of underground spider people. Like, a couple of them. Salamander folk just felt a lot more interesting. Just like the Vanderpi, these guys are very customizable. You could pick any range of colors or even bioluminescence to add to your Caudite. And their traits allow for a couple of nice optimized playstyles, but really you can do whatever you want. After this video, I want to make a Caudite for myself and maybe turn that into an NPC for my players to encounter next time they go back into the Underdark. And those are our 3 Therenor races. If you have any cool PC or NPC ideas for these races, please let us know in the comments and over on the Discord channel when it goes live, approximately the second this video goes out. I will be monitoring it and I will be trying to answer any questions and welcome people to the server. As for the contest, it's both writing and artist submissions. Artists will be tasked with drawing a D&D character that is one of these custom races, while also providing a very brief description about that character's backstory. And writers will be tasked with recounting the events that led to your Sandalver, Vanderpi, or Caudite adventurer to take up the sword and begin adventuring. Your writing submission can be as short as you want, but it can go up to a maximum of 1,000 words. The deadline to enter will be 1 month from now, May 3rd, 2025, and Lee and I are incredibly excited to see what you guys can come up with. That's it for me today. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you soon.